Chris-Rachael here with Fanboy TV's 6-hour live film fest, where we're interviewing all the people that you weren't able to actually see at South by Southwest this year. I'm here with my co-host Pocky, and we are today presenting people from The Last Man on the Moon. I am super, super excited by this. Introduce yourselves, gentlemen.
Well, I'm Mark Stewart. I'm the executive producer of the film, and this is Mark Craig. Hey, and he's directed the film. Sorry, I'll do all your talking. I'm a ventriloquist.
So we've got ourselves a pair of Marks today, which is very lucky if you're looking at your cards and looking for pairs and whatnot. But they're here to talk to me specifically, Pocky as well, I guess the rest of you, but really they came because I wanted it so badly, about their documentary called The Last Man on the Moon, which, you'll be surprised to hear this, is about the last man on the moon. So how did you guys get started with this?
Well, actually, I think, Mark, you can talk this time. I'll allow you to talk.
Sure?
Yeah,
Sure about
you can
that?
talk, yeah.
Just this once.
Basically, I just read Gene Cernan's book, was blown away before I'd even reached the end of it, and just got it into my head, probably quite obsessively, that I had to make the film.
Is it because you were jealous that Britain doesn't have a space program?
Well, we haven't launched any rockets from Britain, but I think that you might find there are one or two Brits who were in Houston at the time. But hey, let's not. You know, we are friends across the pond, so let's not, stir up any old adversaries.
But actually, somebody came up to me yesterday and says, why did it take a Scotsman and an Englishman to make a film about an American?
I completely agree. Why? Do you have an answer for that?
We're enthusiastic. When we look at America, as far as we're concerned, I can speak for myself here. Your space program, I think, was so exciting. Hugely historically important for America, because it really is something you did that not many other people did. You went to the moon. And came back.
True. It's an important part. We didn't just send dogs into space to die, or monkeys, or all the other critters that we've all of us globally sent into space to die.
Yeah. And if you look at things from an outsider, when you live in it and it's around you all the time, you don't actually appreciate it necessarily, and maybe that's why. But we were passionate about it, and Mark brought me the book, and I read it cover to cover. I'm a slow reader. So 5 years later, we said,
Mark, I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. I said, let's do this film. Let's make it happen. And the title of the film, The Last Man on the Moon, I think was very important.
Yes.
Not the first man, not the guy in the middle, not the second man, the last man.
See, that is something that really frustrates me. He shouldn't be the last man on the moon. There was so much promise with the space program, but it was over by the time I was born. And I'm happy that Elon Musk is trying to pick things up, that SpaceX exists and things like that, but as someone who have those outsider perspectives, why do you think America just sort of like, whatever, we've been to the moon, we don't need to have a space program anymore, whatever?
Let me answer that, because I think, this is just my personal opinion,
please.
I don't know if other people will share it, but, we in England are surrounded by castles that are 1,000 years old, and, kings and queens and an incredible amount of history, and yet we walk past that every day, taking it for granted. And maybe, I think what we need is visitors from outside, and Americans who come to us and say, hey, wow, look at all this great stuff you've got. And only then do we kind of look up and go, actually, you know what, you're right. Maybe it takes an outsider to come to your country and go, folks, look what you did back in that day, and isn't it amazing, and look how great you can be if you do it.
So do you think that's why Richard Branson, for example, is one of the big pioneers with modern space travel?
Well, I think he's obviously got the money to...
And he's insane. Wonderfully insane.
He's got a nice beard, though.
It's true.
Maybe not quite as...
Well, there's stories. NASA's also trying to develop technology like this.
That's right. Now, actually, can I just ask you, what would that do if you went into space? Would it be out here somewhere?
We're still getting the model rendering for it. It's chaos in form. I'm afraid to just keep going directions infinitely.
The first beard, I don't know, I'm sure there's been some beards on there.
The first beard on the moon. There's a thing.
So how did you guys go about getting in touch with Cernan? Because he's in his 80s now. I'm sure that a random call from hi, we're a bunch of Englishmen and we'd really like to talk to you about this thing that you did 30 years ago. Is that kind of how it went?
He didn't want to do this. He didn't want to do it. But by the way, he is the coolest man alive.
He certainly looked like it from the documentary.
We eventually found him in a ranch in Kerrville, Texas, tending to cattle, longhorn cattle. It was like the Marlboro Man. It was Clint Eastwood. I don't know if you're allowed to say Marlboro anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Clint Eastwood, this guy was cool, and we looked at this. We're terrified to begin with. He's got big hands. He's one of those amazing characters, and it took a bit of convincing. Mark was trying to convince him for a couple of more years before I even got involved to do this.
Yeah, I was getting nowhere, so I had to come back with reinforcements and beat a path to his door. And
why did he not want to make it initially?
Well, I think to be honest, he lived through that whole media spotlight big time back in the day. You know, he's had more cameras and microphones thrust in his face than most people alive, and you know, he'd had his fill of that, really. He doesn't need that. And so I think he just felt he didn't need yet another guy, you know, wanting to make yet another film about going to space. And I figured, you know, if we were going to make another documentary, it would have to be a little bit different. And hopefully this one is.
One of the things I really appreciated about it was that he did talk about things like his divorce, and that 60% of all astronauts ended up getting divorced. And it was very touching when he said, we were terrible husbands, we were terrible fathers. And I at least had the impression towards the end of it that, you know, he's remarried now, happily for 25 years, I believe.
24? 25?
25 now.
24.
But that, you know, his ex-wife had hated the media spotlight from what she was saying in the documentary, and so I could see him being reluctant to get back into that with his new wife.
Yeah, but you know, there are plenty of people on this planet who never let him forget that he went to the moon. So even if he only did it 40 years ago and his first wife got sick of it, you know, there are so many demands of him and his time, and you know, he's so giving that actually that hasn't gone away for him. He's still living in that bubble in a way.
And he seems so incredibly energetic. Like, I would love to be that energetic at 40 as he is at 80.
Yeah,
it's
me
just
too.
amazing.
He is an incredible ball of energy. I mean, and you know, you're very lucky to have him. You know, you should be very proud to have not just Gene but the whole space program.
Yeah.
It really is an amazing part of your history. And you know, we may have the royal family in the UK, we may have all these, you know, great historic battles, etc., etc.
This, a few here.
And they've had a few here. But what I'm saying is this: I just think it's, you know, America for me, as far as I was concerned when I was growing up, it's the coolest country in the world. And I have to say, I'm a big fan of Texas, and we've done a lot of filming
He's
here.
not sucking up in the slightest.
Not at all, no, because we live in Scotland. It rains, it's cold, it's small, and I live in, well, you know, I grew up in the UK, so coming here is very exciting, and being in Austin has been wonderful, and to show our film here, it's a real treat.
Touching on something that you mentioned about how this is part of our history, as someone who's a big fan of the space program and wants to see people in space, why don't we have L5 colonies and things on the moon yet? Why do you think that it just got, not just where you're saying like, oh, well, it's a part of our history in the past, what would be necessary to make it part of our present and future?
It just needs somebody somewhere to go, guys, this is the mission, and let's try and do it. You know, it takes a collective will of a lot of people, a lot of stars to align, really, and you know, ducks all to line up in the row, and we're just waiting for that to happen, I think.
Do you think it's also part of the reason it was called a space race after all? It was the fact that it was us versus the Russians even. It wasn't like us versus any other country in the world. It was just Russia. Do you think it would take something like that again with like maybe like China or something, or like, you know, if we lose getting to the first colony on Mars, like, or the moon.
I want China to fight with us for this. Seriously,
Yeah.
China,
Yeah.
please motivate us in this regard. But
Because it's competition breeds you know onward. So
I think the future will be a group effort, I suspect. I think, you know, I think within our lifetime there will be some of the kids today growing up, they'll be going to the moon or to Mars, and possibly. I think there is an opportunity to do that. What is sad, really, and it's to see what was these huge monuments where man left this planet to go to another planet, the only place on Earth, and you know, in Florida, and they're falling apart.
Yeah.
You know, they're rusty. They've got, you know,
the scene
bird
at the
droppings
end
on
where
it.
he's
It's,
saying, "I wish I'd never come back here. I don't want to remember it this way." That was incredibly touching.
You know, also, you know, but the other side of it, you know, I said yesterday to somebody, I said, you know, this film is you know, looking back in order to maybe look forward and re-encourage people to think about the possibilities and what we can do as a human, you know, the capabilities of the human spirit of adventure, etc. I think it's so important, and we're just lucky enough to have been able to tell this story.
I am glad that you did. I found it it was fun for me to watch, again, as someone who, you know, really loves space travel and wants to see us out there. Do you have any last bit of recommendation for people who might be interested in trying to get into the SpaceX program or trying to suck up to Elon Musk or Richard Branson or anything along those lines? Because you guys have managed to actually talk to an astronaut. What do you think they would need to do to be like, oh, no, seriously, we need to be part of this?
I think just whatever it is your particular specialist area is, that there's a job for you somewhere in a space program. And I think if you just hang on to that dream and think big and aim high, then whatever you achieve will be worthwhile. And guys, just hopefully just work together and do these great things you're capable of.
Great. So for people that want to watch it, is it available online yet?
Not yet, no.
No, we're showing it for the very first time in Austin at South by Southwest.
Fantastic.
We're here to hopefully start the process of getting a distribution deal, getting it out there. Certainly later this year, I think it will be on some kind of platform somewhere where we can see it. But I, if at all possible, I do urge people to see it on a big screen in a movie theater, if it is at all possible, because that
The
way.
space porn scenes were incredible. And like, if you enjoyed watching 2001 or more recently Interstellar, and just those vast space scenes, the footage you guys were able to get from NASA, I was like, just put down the popcorn, I gotta watch that a little bit. Well, thank you guys so much for being here.
My pleasure.
And look for it hopefully coming out this fall. Try and watch it on a big screen.
Come and watch it. We're here.